Family Shalom. Just gonna make a quick video. I just wanted to talk about something really interesting. So it's quite known that if we look at haplogroups, R1A and E1B1A are obviously very different. Now I had did something really interesting. I already had took a living DNA test just a while back. See if I could just log in real fast. All right. So you can see my Y-DNA would be right here, R-M222, and then obviously this is just giving more pinpoints of stuff because sometimes you get on some tests basically summaries of stuff unless you get like big Y tests, which is a lot of money. But some companies just do it all for fairly little to nothing. And this one pretty much, it also got L3. Where is it? Right here. So L3E. Um, Obviously, getting a little understanding there. It's not going to show you the full ancient migration. Usually, it just shows it in Africa. Why? I don't know why, but they don't really show like how. Remember the ones we found up here, moving over here, going over here, moving over here, even going over here into these areas. But they just show, what they want to show. Very interesting. It just gives a little summary of what they only know is the early one, the Bantu movements, which is not that long ago. So they don't go into the deeper roots of it and everything. So even this, that's even connected with the fossil. And if you connect the one with ancient Syria, that one said 125,000 years ago. But, you know, that's why we look into these things. But the one of the R M22, what I also did, I put this test because I took the autosomal test and I put it on my ancient DNA, and I found something really interesting. I want to talk about it. So I talked about this. Remember, F makes K, makes P, makes R, and then there's R. R, this right here. This would be the lineage here. It's giving little ideas of what it would be. Now, it would say it would be an Irish branch, but let me show you something from living or my true ancestry. This was really interesting because it talks about its connections, talks about like ancient Rome, Britain, Ireland, obviously the Scythians and stuff like that, Sumerians, right? Cimmerian, right? Iberia. Now, what's also interesting when it connects it to like a ancient society, the ancient societies that it connects it to. Let's see if I can fresh real fast and just grab something on this thing. I think the autosomal tests, ancient autosomal tests, and things like that are fairly interesting. I think they're fairly interesting to look into. So it just says right here, Scottish clan. So I wanted to see what clan was it talking about? A Scottish clan from Scotland? Like, is it from Scotland? And it said royal ties, and I went down to see what samples is it talking about and what royal ties. But to my surprise, is actually in a very interesting location. It's not actually in Scotland because I talked about this before that a lot of our 1B groups, even like other geneticists, they like basically look at them. They know they're different, but for some reason they were moving together in a lot of places with this group that was over here, Valley of Kings, and for some reason apparently a bunch of E1B1A groups were here. So you can see right here about the 16th to the 11th century BC. That's about the time frame of the Israelites. And it says right here, the Valley of the Kings. And I was like, I actually never heard of this place. When I seen this, it was fairly new to me, seeing some of these things and getting a little bit of understanding of this area. And it just talks about some different things of the history and stuff. And it gives a little understanding of the placement of it. And I was kind of shocked. And I was looking, I was like tombs of Ramses III and other ones that were connected together and whatnot, different families. And it's like a biblical time frame. It's actually a very important time frame because this is actually a biblical time frame. This is a time frame when around this time, you'll have the Israelites coming out of Egypt, right? You get a lot of things going on. They talk about the Hyksos and whatnot, and different things. Just scrolling down just to get a little view of it. So I thought it was interesting when I seen that. I was like, the connection is royal matches ancient Egypt, ancestral seat, Valley of Kings, Y-DNA haplogroups. And I already, when I had looked at this, I already had knew that they had found some mummies and everything that were basically in that area. So they had a bunch of different mummies and stuff, right? Some of these don't show the haplogroup, but we have a paper, a couple different papers where we have the haplogroup when we go over Egypt and stuff, and we know it's like a interesting mixed company down there and whatnot. But they do tests, like for example here, they do tests sometimes when they test also a group of individuals that apparently have E groups and R groups. And I just found it really interesting because I was like, that's you know, you put Scotland and then you look on the thing, it's like the most closest ancestral group is this group in Egypt. So it's fairly interesting. I mean, it makes sense because the autosomal, because you got to consider also the women, which women were mixing. That's also going to tell about the population. It's going to give an idea of the population that's going to be there in time. But you'll see a lot of whenever I put studies of E1B1A, E1 and R1B1A. That's what I find sometimes is that they'll look at the comparison of these lineages and everything. Even for example, here, the time depth of R1B in Europe has this put it with opinions ranging from a Paleolithic date to a Neolithic one. ADNA, which is autosomal DNA, has not yet been very informative for the Y chromosome. So I think these ancient DNA tests could be key for understanding some of the movements of these lineages. So I think that's what is really putting an understanding to these things, because a lot of times when they're testing these things, they like to see what's going on. When they're looking at the similarities and the differences with these different lineages. So very interesting when looking at these things and whatnot. So I just wanted to show that when you have these different lineages, sometimes you think about the world, what groups were really together in the past, who is where, and because just getting a little piece of information, getting one drop of information, getting a Y chromosome or empty DNA won't tell you the ancient history of yourself. Even if you have a similar line to another, you never know where you actually been or where you have gone. But we know that our salvation is in Christ, right? But these things are interesting because it's the Most High who puts the life in the blood. I just thought it was really interesting when I seen that. And here's some other stuff. That's cool how this site does this. It says it's castle, so it should be able to find it in the lands of Britain if it's an R lineage. This one is the 18th century. And what do we have here? We got some different British people. They got different mtDNA, but the same rDNA. R1B. Let's see if I see anyone with an L. No. There's some different lineages. That's all right. So that's really interesting. So it's in some Egyptian mummies, whatnot, some other civilizations. I don't know if these ones are. It says 3 new ones. So I thought it was really interesting. When you get these spreads like this, and this is a lineage that I would expect to have ties with different Indo-European nations, I would think. The Visigoths were no match for the powerful Muslim army that invaded. Oh, interesting. That's one group. I don't think that's in connection. That would be interesting if it was. I wouldn't think that would be in connection that way. It's interesting. So it has some interesting information. It has some very interesting information to cite. Yeah, I was just showing what it has on it and everything, and this kind of mixture, is really interesting to see. You know, so this one is really interesting because it's kind of giving an idea of movements, right? And I talked about this that this actually was a very rich area. Africa used to be very important. Remember, we was talking about the Jotanites that went down into Punt and then went down into basically Albania into Ethiopia and actually deeper into Ethiopia. That's why a lot of the Sabaeans were called Ethiopians because a lot of Ethiopia was actually very powerful. Nobody can really pierce through Nubia. You can see that with different wars with the Romans and the Muslims that try to get through Nubia, and you can get a good understanding if you just see the history behind Nubia and the Muslims, how they couldn't get pierced through there. The Christian Nubians, they couldn't get through them. So, and this is ancient times. So let me take a look here. So you can see down here into Ethiopia, and remember my Y chromosomes are R1b. So you can see right here, this is supposed to be BC time frame. That's really interesting. And here's 180. Very interesting. 80 time frame. It's really interesting. BC is fairly interesting. This one's a long time ago, say 4000 BC. So right here is 80 time frame. Get a more closer look. Oh, it can go like to other places. I don't know if there's any other places. I'm thinking it's more pointed down here, which I want to see that one. What's going on there. Oh, let me move this map a little more. $880. 80. So it looks like a decent amount of time. I wonder what's that right there. I was just thinking it's easier to work with if it was more phone friendly. Let's see. 80 time frame. It's kind of interesting. Just really moving around these areas. Let me zoom in a little more. I'm trying to click the one behind it. There it is. Niger Congo, that's like 1780. So there's been some secret societies going on down there, some secret kingdoms that was moving about down here. This is 1200 BC. So it's been some societies moving about down there. So that's important. Here's some over here. Right here. That's gonna be basically 1843 AD. Here's one. Saint Martin, a slave, 1674 AD. Okay. So apparently, like you can upgrade and get more information and stuff. There's another one. This one will be one or 1880. So very, very interesting. Very interesting stuff. I think, you know, because it's just giving a little more information and stuff. I'm hoping that, now that I'm kind of like dealing with them, they will give me some information on some other groups. because I want to know more about, T movements, because I already know they're connected with like Vandals and stuff, and more about um, the E groups movements. More information, though we have a lot, but that's interesting. The R lineage, because you got to consider, just because someone has same Y DNA doesn't mean they move the same places as others with the same Y DNA. So very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. So, well, with that, I think that is all this has. It's free. This site is actually free. It's called My True Ancestry, right? And pretty much, if you have ever used any of these little things here, or any other, like, there's a lot of different other ones. Pretty much, it just upload. You just upload the autosomal thing and show you how to do it and everything. But I think that was interesting. I think that was very interesting to see. It's like a time frame of it. So upgrade needed. So I guess I need to upgrade to see what's the roots, what's the further back ones, and some further back ones. But I got up to some time frame over here. Oh, Iron Age and everything. Give them the little movements there. So that's very interesting. That's fairly interesting. So who knows? I don't think I'll go more into it. I'm satisfied with, getting an idea of these things, as I kind of got a good idea of it. And I kind of figured that's what happened. Like my lineage must have had moved and became one with certain lineages that had also moved down there and became one. So that's just something that I also noticed. So very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. But I already went over it. Ancient connections. I already talked about it. Scythians and things like that. I know that's what the R lineage is mixed with. There's no doubt. It's about being about truth, looking at stuff truthfully. So that's what I wanted to share today. I just wanted to share a little bit of that information, as I think it's interesting to me end it on this little thing, right? Haplogroup analysis, right? And it said my new Scottish clans. I was like, oh, okay, I want to see which Scottish clan is this. And I'm like, what? Where am I? Where is it? And then I go down, and I was right here in this little area of the Valley of the Kings. I'm like, what? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, of course. I'm like, but why? I never looked into like this valley, the valley of the gates of the kings. I was like, I've never seen information on this, but obviously this is something probably was known. But now I'm gonna do a little more interesting research in that. So I guess apparently in that area there's Y haplogroups E1B1A. So interesting stuff with that. So with that, family, be beloved, be blessed, and amen.